I'll just start with the university's component and the freedom of expression. What's the advice that the Minister for Universities has provided you with, if any?
Look, you can read my first reading speech, and part of the reason for having this part in the bill, there have been some concerns raised about a limit on campus of academic freedom and freedom of expression. There have been a number of examples, and we just wanted to make sure that in the bill we are supporting that academic freedom and that freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Making sure that universities have a statement of freedom of expression so that they have publicly put out what their statement is. They're required to make sure they're keeping track of any complaints and then having to report on those complaints, their processes, and anything that's happened in their annual reports, which are tabled in Parliament. So, look,
Sorry,
the advice
was
has
in
been,
regards to Minister Reti. What advice has he provided to you?
everything that I've outlined, that these things are required because there have been instances in some cases where academic freedom and freedom of expression have not been guaranteed.
Thank you. And the number of examples you referred to, can you outline what those examples are?
I think the one that comes to mind
Number
is probably,
of examples you...
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
there's a whole report you can read that the New Zealand Initiative recently put out that's got a
Sorry,
number of
Mr.
those.
Chair. This is about having time with the Minister to ask questions about the legislation that she has put in place. She continues to refer me back to written statements. That's not why we're here. This is an opportunity to ask the Minister questions while she's in front of us.
Okay, so we don't have much time. So if
Sure,
the
I
Minister
was
can
still
answer,
going.
great. If not,
I think the one that comes to mind, of course, is the instance of Don Brash not being able to speak on campus, and that was through Massey University. That's probably the one that was in the media and has been widely reported on.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to understand, accepting what you've said, what are the barriers that have been brought to your attention currently that are obstructing people or Don Brash?
Yeah.
What are the actual barriers in
I think
place
what
at
the
moment that are
reason
obstructing people?
in some of these instances, the barrier has been certain opinions that are held by universities who are making claims that that would be disruptive, or there would be violence, or it would be difficult to have certain people on campus, and it's being used as an excuse. Whereas what we're asking for in this bill is to be open and transparent about that. So there is always a case where if there is going to be violence on campus, there is always justified limitations for universities not to have people speak on campus, for example, but they would have to make that case, have their statement, of course, make that case, be able to have a process where people can complain and then have to report on that, so that there's more transparency and openness rather than things happening without that transparency.
Last up.
So from a duty of care perspective, the university indicates that potentially there will be violence as a result. They don't see it's safe to run an event. They can't afford to pay for security measures, safety measures to put in place.
They would have to report on that.
They would have to, but they would not be obliged to run that event
Well,
if they couldn't ensure the safety of students and staff.
There are justified limitations, of course, but they would have to report on that. There would be a complaints process, and they would have to report in their annual report, which would go through Parliament. Whereas at the moment, that's
That
not
was the
required.
last one. Thanks.